This is some evil ass fucking shit. Every single morning, I have to fucking wake up like I did yesterday. I was planning on posting this video yesterday, but I couldn't. So I was told, oh, you getting fixed. And finally, one of them road spirits told me I'm totally under the control of Tavares. You know, wiped out my spirit guides, gods, and all of that. And I was getting fucked with by Hecate. And I did a video the other day. You know, I don't like posting them videos, honestly, because they come off as schizophrenic, but it's a matter of life and death because this shit that I'm dealing with is real. I could have lost my whole soul consciousness, which could kill you. That's a record of your life, but that's like your blood. So I put out her name to save me, and from what I, found out while under Tavares, Hecate had placed her, I put a real name out there. She had placed herself into Zendaya's consciousness, and what Tavares did was she took the entity attachments of mine and gave it to all of these people. I can show you here. Destroy so that I can stay. I keep hearing her say over and over again, you're a sacrifice and you're my sacrifice. And insisting on keeping me a sacrifice. And I'm going to say something right now that's very, very compelling. The other day, I was talking about, and I talked about in this video as well. It kills me to see that all these people You know, Zendaya in that August 21st, 22nd, 2022 timeline. My parents died in that. You know, it's real. It's very, very real. I feel empty right now even telling y'all that because I have nothing. They taking shit out of my God last night. Anyways, with that being said, this is some evil ass shit. And that Santa birthday shit, she gotta fucking go. Get rid of her out the spirit plane. That's the most wicked, evil ass shit. But anyways, I was shown them nigga bitches. They supposed to be on Delegua, and Delegua originally was a very, very nice guy. I keep noticing that these evil adversarial entities are placed in charge of my entity attachments, so that I don't get my shit back. And I have to stand under this heavy, evil ass energy. I want to mention the name of one of them who set the whole thing with Delegua up. But anyways, with that being said, you know, he was in the living furniture realm. That's why when people see him, especially if he's part of a curse, you know, he'll come at you and burp. Those are entity attachments created out of a person who, in the spirit plane, is stuck in the hell realm and can't get out. From what I understand, Yosefet is the entity that that's the entity that set it up for Elegua. I can't even have free speech because all of these evil entities, including Maria Tavares, taking over my entity attachments. I got to get rid of this wetbag. I got a Pharaoh's, whatchamacallit, coming in today, and hopefully that offsets everything. It's pure fucking evil what I'm dealing with, and I'm trying to get a good gauge of what's going on. I keep getting confused every fucking time. I was just shown by some of them road spirits that wetbacks in the neighborhood are dominating them timelines still for me. It's just evil ass motherfucking shit. There's a reason why back in the day I put, I don't want to put too much out there because it's complicated. But anyways, I'm going to just skim over that. It's all evil ass shit. And I feel her fucking moving around entity attachments. I tell these road spirits, I'm like, we got fucking frankincense and myrrh. We got 694, 695 hertz. We got, but he K1555 hertz, but that's not going to affect her. I don't think I should have said that because it's going to fuck me up because of how this shit has my energy body all fucking wide open. That's why I wanted to get Reiki really, really fucking bad. The more fives, the better. And from what I understand, in Zendaya's consciousness, or whatever, her name is Zendaya Coleman, by the way. This is her wearing a Baphomet ring. Barriers, spiritual barriers. You can use 1150 hertz, 1155 hertz, or 115 hertz to break spirit barriers like that. 117 hertz is good, but 1150, Maria Tavares tried to shut that down because it's very good for getting your shit back and all of that. Those are very good frequencies to get your shit back. Anyways, I'm going to start breaking free from this shit. There's a lot I want to talk about and say, but I can't. With that being said, I was shown, like this Pierre Holmes and all of that. All of these people are benefiting off of me as a sacrifice, whereas I can't even buy like certain like things like rings and stuff, especially spiritual or jewelry, because if I do, because of how my shit is, you fuck something up or get something fucked up. With that, and I can't even tell my truth because I feel this shit like Kate and all of that. And this Maria Tavares planning on manipulating shit. But anyways, with that being said, I'm being made to forget like vital shit that I wanted to say right now. But anyways, if it wasn't for these road spirits, I wouldn't have shit to some degree. But as my father, Maria Tavares, done became my higher self. It's no longer my Jewish great grandmother or my mother here. fucking with my grandmother Dorothy right here. Trying to take over shit. Anyways, with that being said, I was shown by them road spirits a couple of days ago how in them timelines, include with Maria Tavares, that whole shit is true. That May the 1st, 2024 timeline is true. She driving a Porsche, a maid, she working people homes, Univision and all of that. And I'm going to tell y'all the story about my brother that confirms all this shit, that I ain't in my timeline. And I keep getting thrown out my body. I saw on the spirit plane, like the other day, by her and a couple of other wetbacks. I'll tell you where I'm at. I'm by Main. It's Main Street. Like I say, it's a matter of not life and death in 47. And that's where I'm at. Main Street in 47 by, not that far from Figueroa. And that's where I'm at. Central American neighborhood. I just saw 55 there, which is significant, and that's the number. It's 155 or any variance of, but the more fives, the better to get rid of Hecate. And 1150 hertz removes spirit barriers. There's no irony behind that, because she runs consciousness, Hecate. It's a lot to learn, like what I learned with two circles and all of that. You have a hierarchy. You got the tall blinds, you got the tall redheads who run things with the blacks, us, people of color, the blondes, the Nordics, the reptilians and all of that. It goes up, it goes deep. Anyways, with that being said, it's like I can't even think in my fucking head without something getting fucked with. Anyways, with that being said, I was shown by them roach spirits how all of them people going back to that timeline. My dad showed me with them people who initially put this shit on me, Barbara, David Rayner, Ingrid Hybrid or whatever, putting this shit on me. But I was shown, the latest being Maria Tavares coming in and trying to feed off of me. And it's like, I don't have a spirit team that gives a fuck. That's why I dropped the docs on my own Archangel Michael. They oftentimes are ancestors and individuals meant to help you out. From what I understand, Baron Samedi brought him in when I was 2 years old. He's supposed to be an ancestor, a faggot ancestor of Zendaya's. He looks like Sub-Zero. I almost want to say his name. Thank Miami Vice. With that being said, they brought him in to keep me under heavy curses and to set up this soul swap thing with, where I become a sacrifice and die and all of that in the future. That's from what I understand. With that being said, I feel like I have no fucking consciousness right now as I talk. And I keep getting, they keep estranging me from real spiritual protection. And I keep getting told by all these ratty ass, fucking evil ass, and you gotta wait 6 hours for something you should take for granted, which is your inner spirit body maintenance. That's why I'm just doing videos. I don't give a fuck at this point. What's gonna happen is gonna happen. With that being said, I was shown incontrovertibly how all these motherfuckers, them nigga bitches, Pierre Holmes with that, she got something else. It's called Renee something with that No Say So clothing line. That's how it started. Her timelines, from what I understand, started at the Guggenheim Museum. I thought it would be the Getty because I know they had showings back in the day, but it's the Guggenheim Museum. I think they got money or some from the Illuminati 300. A couple of them people did, including Zendaya. Zendaya in that timeline got 300 million or something. Selling me as a sacrifice for Hecate. From what I understand, she sent an email back in the day, saying that I was going to be living under a bridge and all of that, and she was going to steal all my blessings. And I had some evil motherfucking people. I can't tell if they were fucking niggas, kikes. I think one of them who's involved is this guy here. I knew this guy personally when I lived on the PCH. Very, very nice guy, but he kind of had a creepy aura. I'm not going to lie, but I don't want to make any assumptions about him because I never had any problems. or kikes. I heard one of the biggest kikes was that fucking fake Azar Jew. What's his name? Who's a comedian who sold me out as a sacrifice. What's his name? It's gonna come. He was one of the ones. Adam. I my consciousness is so fucked up. I'm gonna have to listen to what these spirits are saying. But Adam Sandler. He was one of the ones back in my old neighborhood, Miracle Mile, when I lived at 637 Hauser Boulevard, who wanted me as a sacrifice so he can prolong his career. Same thing with Zendaya, where, you know, from what I understand, the timelines would have been, if she didn't make a deal with the Illuminati, like a lot of them, they go south. You know, hers would have been a whole on Figaro on drugs strung out, and there was even a video on Instagram, let me see if I can get it, that showed that in a way. You know, showed the young lady that looked a lot like her, that's on the street, that's addicted to drugs. Anyways, with that being said, Zendaya, because I used to be famous on the PCH, walking around topless, titties out and all of that, sold me as a sacrifice, as an incarnated God, that Heke thing, from which, you know, like within you contain your ancestors, entity attachments of them, and then your current relatives, family, and all of that represent them. And, you know, part of my ancestors, you know, I've shown this before with Nefertiti's shadow appearing in place of mine. Now, you know, I say to the comedians, man, they've been a great help throughout all of this. Um, an entity attachment of Isis that was connected to my mother, that's supposed to, you know, keep up and maintain my body and all of that. The powers from that, that's why they've been putting my parents in hell realms. I was shown that when I, you know, saw it a couple of days ago when ancestors were coming through, and I saw my parents as ancestors that shouldn't be if they were alive. And one of them, because the Tavares barely had any fucking, you know, any soul consciousness, any flame there. That, you know, I'm going to say something right now. That's why I don't, them wetbacks, they were the ones, the main ones telling me back in Miracle Mile, you got cursed and making fun of me and tormenting me for that. I'm not a big fan of wetbacks. I steer clear of them. And when you see the video later on, you're going to see why. Those are some evil motherfuckers. There's something not right with them people. So I avoid them people like the plague. If they come up to me with anything spirit, get the fuck away from me. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear tarot reading or what you see around me. I get them people away from me. You know, I feel like my attitude towards them is like people attitude, you know, people's attitudes when HIV first came out. I don't, you know, because of all this, I don't want anything to do with them people. Get them the fuck away from me. Because they're in the way of the catalyst for all this shit. And then I got to deal with this Santham word they told. It's just, we got resource. This is getting on my fucking nerves. It's freedom of choice is being extinguished here. Anyways, to make a long story short, Zendaya and them sold me as a sacrifice. And I was showing them timelines that, you know, that shit's not fake. You know, just like when I saw through my third eye, which I barely have, my soul consciousness being taken out. With that being said, I got to get this wetback bitch out. But it gets so complicated. If I play 6,000 hertz, and she hindered my ability to play 295 hertz, that's how much she's infiltrated my spirit body, energy body. Anyways, I was shown the lives that they live in, helipads and all of that. They saw that, you know, I even had a dream where I saw a bunch of people in the room waiting for something. Just like in the astral world, I saw them girls here, them no say so girls. sitting in the whatchamacallit, in a salon waiting to be serviced. And what that connoted to was them waiting for me as a sacrifice so they could get blessings off of me as a sacrifice. And the worst of it came when I got, anyways, with that being said, this is used to be a power, smart, intelligent motherfucker, but the burden of all this shit, is what just crashes you, and I gotta deal with this wetback bitch. They're supposed to be open tomorrow. Her higher self is evil ass energy vampire. You can use 960 hertz to get rid of her and all of that, and she'll use that adversely to fuck with my spirit team to some degree. And I was shown in the spirit plane. I ain't got shit aside from my father and ancestors. And I had fucking Baron Samedi try to cut me off from along with that Alex Nacimiento motherfucker. And it's gotten so bad, even my enemies had to help. Anyways, I don't want to be under that shit. With that being said, I was shown them timelines, and that really hurt me. I was shown that, them girls were being shown helipads and all of that, while 2016, when the curse first started, the wetbacks hit Pacific Palisades. His name Tomas or Manuel or Jose. I think they were married or something. I'm not really sure. But I heard he raped an 11-year-old girl. I know that. I saw him and that woman. And with that being said, her driving a Porsche, being on Univision, benefiting off of me as a sacrifice. That's why I just, I go with just spilling the beans out. With that being said, I'm forced to fight and struggle to be put back together every single day, and have being put back together, my spirit energy body, it made a big deal when it shouldn't. got me to the point of being schizophrenic. That's how evil my fucking so-called that Archangel Michael was. I remember walking in the middle of the fucking street and him telling me, I gotta do something with these people that put you back, and stop in the middle of the. But it's a deck curse, so I mean, you have to take it seriously. It ain't something you can play around with. With that being said, when I saw the realities of these people and what they're living and how they can do whatever they want, and meanwhile I have to struggle for basic survival, just, it's a major deal if I get put back together. That's some fucked up shit. And like I said, I saw that wetback bitch. It's the reader here, and here's a phone number. Her highest self be calling me nigga and everything every night. From what I understand, she sold me out as a sacrifice. Her and that guy there, the one who raped an 11-year-old. They had knowledge of it. At one point saying, "Oh man, I got all these blessings. Woo woo." Care where it come from. All that. This thing's trying to make me manipulate me and saying shit. With that being said, this is a fucking shame. I have no spirit protection because when I got something, them motherfuckers weren't even trying to protect me from this evil ass wetback bitch. And road spirits be trying all they can. But it's like, I gotta fight for basic survival, and I get told these impossible fucking prompts and cues by my highest self. Oh, you got to lie in bed, but we got to put you back together, and this is going to take. And a lot of times it leads nowhere, it leads to nothing, because Maria Tavares, like I said a couple of days ago, took over. So it's illusion, it means nothing. But seeing all these motherfuckers feeding on me, I don't want any curses on me. I want better. I don't care if I got soul swapped. My parents sitting in hell realms, and where the fuck is God at? Like, where the fuck is God? That's some evil shit. Where God at for this? You keep throwing out my father, who's my connection to my Godhead, who's the best defense, spiritual defense I got. Why you allowing a soul swapping bitch who soul swapped me to remove my father out of my body? Like, where the fuck does that come from? I heard, because I was under Baron Samity's guy, that this was set up so that I prostrate to God more, so that I worship God. Them people, from what I understand, who put this shit on me with that Roach Realm shit, it started back in Miracle Mile, 2015, 2016. That's when I started seeing this shit. I think I have an idea of their names, Zapata, Zamora. I almost wonder if these motherfuckers keep getting told, oh, it's, a Costco or a Roscoe is their name, and I was told by some spirits in the spirit plane that was their name, but I'm not sure, but I kept hearing Zapata. But anyways, when I saw that, I'm like, I even heard many people in that timeline. I've had people hire the highest self, spirit guides try to connect me to that timeline, tell me, that a lot of motherfuckers at the top think it's the most, even motherfuckers who be doing evil shit like, I saw Clive Davis in that timeline and all of that. I did an article years ago about a record deal here, from Hollywood coming to visit. And I didn't know it at the time, but, I knew they were helly weird people. They were made to look like ex-neighbors of mine back in Miracle Mile, but turns out they were, record execs like Clive Davis. There were a bunch of them that I saw. L.A. Reid, another one. And they were coming to basically size me up and tell me you were going to get soul swap. I didn't know it back then. And they were setting the stage up for that. I remember having, dreams about a lot of my blessings being taken away. I saw Patti LaBelle, a bunch of them. I was in a high-rise penthouse and saw my shit get taken by them, by her. A lot of my blessings. But there was some I wanted to mention, and I had some just bite a large piece of my consciousness. I gotta find this wetback's Achilles heel, man, because, like, she can avoid not getting caught for this. Her ass, I believe the reader who I went to a reading for who's benefiting from me in that timeline, that May the 1st, 2024 timeline, her name is Elsie Solano or Serrano. And her highest self is Maria Tavares. Use 694 hertz, 695 hertz to see what's really going on with that. Because I want to figure out what the fuck is going on. But anyways, I had record execs coming, coming there to, size me up. And I'm like, I could see acting in movies. And I was, I heard that was going to be, if I was to have my spirit protection, all that right, my destiny, get a movie made out of me for doing the topless shit and all that, and I can go about my business having made my money. The only motherfucker that would have protected it, he was one of the ones involved in the soul swap, would have been Satan. And he was the one that got me on Without Prejudice and Rock of Love. It's just been fucking downhill struggle with me, man. Just energy vampires and all of that. I don't have any real spiritual protection. I have to do things to budge to get my spirit team to do something. It's just, while I suffer to get my shit back. It's the most evil as I've heard from a lot of people. They would say it's the most evil ass motherfucking shit they've ever fucking seen. And from what I understand, that girl's timeline start at Radio City Music Hall and Atchafalaya Bay. Mine's is supposed to be the New Orleans waterfront, riverfront. I remember taking them little boats back in the day when I was a young kid. I had such a great life and a great family. I'm making the shirt right now because I saw them as ancestors in memoriam of them. They're not with me. Something ain't right. I'm not in the land of the living. It hurts me because all I have is this little road spirits to help, and they're the only things I have helping me. They care about me. And I get estranged from them. My family seeing my parents stuck in hell realms. They tried to rescue them today with 125 hertz, 1185 hertz. call them my babies. They made me laugh and everything else. You're supposed to get close to shit like that, but they help. I have the pride and cajole and do hard shit that, you know, I found out in one timeline that with this evil shit, the bullshit ass Archangel Michael, I can't even have fucking paintings on the wall and shit. That's why it's important you choose your spirit team and you choose. This is devastating. I gotta deal with this evil ass shit every single fucking day. I can't even be free to say what I want in my own fucking consciousness, my own mind. But anyways, I found out that the intent was, you know, a lot of people feel for me because, you know, unlike Kanye West, the devil got so swapped. I never tasted greatness or fame and fortune. They had that at least briefly. I never had that. And I've just been made a fucking sacrifice and condemned to a life where, you know, not just soul swap, but also karma swap. I'm getting word that Maria Tavares plans on doing something really, really fucked up today where she's going to try to fuck with some people. I'm going to say this right now. That motherfucker, she on her own. If it wasn't for certain, she would have went rawhide under Santa Muerte. That's why that Santa Muerte shit needs to go. You know, I want to say I have some protection, so it had to come from my enemies. That's how bad that and that Santa Muerte shit is. That Topa need to go. And I did an article on it on my blog, toplessinla.org. With that being said, you know, it's like the thing with Elegua. I'm supposed to lose my incarnated God status, which got stolen from the powers of my mom. And I'm supposed to be stuck in hell, whereas motherfuckers who lived the life of O'Reilly are going to be in heavenly realms and all of that, very, very nice realms. And I'm supposed to just accept that fate. I ain't trying, you know, you got, look, I'm explaining something right now. You got the real Baron Samedi, then you got the entity attachment versions. I remember Baron Samedi telling me, you're supposed to get soul swap for 7 years and then wait to get back in your body. And when you do, you're supposed to expect to be poor. That's some fucked up shit. And that's from God, all that shit. But not my dad's God. All this evil ass shit, I'm being told, it's telling me to anticipate that. And meanwhile, I'm getting all my shit, a little bit of spiritual protection I got from road spirits and all of that, and even from the evil of this Maria Tavares coming in and fucking with shit. You know, like I say, evil motherfucker wanted to take the ancestral money of me and Baron Samedi, the real one and all that shit, because he actually exists, unlike Santa Muerte. She wanted to take his shit to Santa Muerte. That's why she covers the oversoul Mexican consciousness. That's why them people fear her so much, because she could just snatch y'all. And it's not her that's doing it, because she a Topa thought form. It's people's higher and highest selves that's acting as her. You can petition God to get rid of her. You know, I was told going back to that August 21st, 2022, August 22nd, 2022 timeline, she was removed from the Mexican oversoul consciousness, and that made a big difference on them people, and they were actually a lot happier, and it was a lot lighter. Their energy tends to be dark because of their origins, like I explained in the video. You don't want that, so petition God to get rid of her. With that being said, because that's some evil ass shit, you know, I'm supposed to end up with the fate of Elegua, you know, trapped in the hell realm. Me and them road spirits actually freed them. 3517 hertz, put them back together. 1117 117 hertz combined with 800 hertz is very good for putting somebody back together in a spirit plane, because that wakens up physical bodies. And within your physical bodies, as I learned during this course, you got entity attachments living in bones and all of that. So you can always, that's how people can always get their shit back. With that being said, you can, holy shit, fucking calm and shit, like they waiting for me to do something. I got to get this shit out. This EK, all that, like I said, I dropped the docs. Where we released them from the hell realm. That's just the most fucked up shit, to just put all this ill shit on somebody. I ain't no murder or rapist. Somebody who is pretty much innocent. That killed me, to see those timelines and to see how I'm living and what I'm going through versus them people. They can thrive, have my consciousness steal from me, and I'm living in hell. And I'm supposed to be slated for hell when I and then you bring in this wetback shit, this Phantom word thing, Maria Tavares shit. I don't need that. I'm going through hell knowing what my parents are going through. Anyways, let me go ahead and talk about a situation that really elucidated it. People talk about the Mandela effect, but I've been saying since May the 1st, 2024, like I said, I don't feel like I'm in the realm of the living anymore. Something happened at the hands of them wetbacks there. That child molesting motherfucker here, Tobias Manuela Jose, they open tomorrow. And that Terry Rita Elsie Serrano or Solano or something. With that being said, I spoke with my brother on the phone a couple of days ago. And while I was talking with my brother on the phone, he told me that when I worked at the Port of New Orleans, I worked for Mac Smith or something, MacArthur Security. I forgot the name, that I worked in the booth. Now, I remember I was one of the boots on the ground, meaning, people who worked outside, because I looked conventionally pretty at the time. I had the blue contacts and the weave. It looked like they were mine because of my features, my higher self is white and all of that. Again, goes back to Jewish ancestor. I was boots on the ground. I worked in the port, checking people, waving people and all of that, as well as outside, which I like, because I had to do shit and I had a crush on one of the motherfuckers that would die. It was a white dude who looked like Peter Coyote. Anyways, with that being said, he told me I worked at a booth. Not only that, he told me that he worked there, and I'm like, I don't remember you working there. I know you worked at a fucking a chef place where they had a motherfucker that tried to sexually harass you. Now, my brother, a thug, he beat his ass. I was proud of him. It was a dude, a white boy, that tried to come on to him, and he fucked his ass up. My brother don't take no shit, especially in the astral plane. He works with Anyways, with that being said, I was like, Carrie, I got a good memory. And you never worked at the port. And I never worked in no motherfucking boat. I was never no showboat bitch. You know, like when hey, girl, you pretty. And I wore that shit because I was all kind of fucked up spiritually and mentally because of Baron Samedi. And in part Satan at the time. And, with that being said, I feel like I saw a cop in the reflection in the mirror right there. With that being said, I worked at the port. And I said, Carrie, I don't remember working at the port. I was never a showboat motherfucker. I was never somebody to be happy and happy. I was never that type of person. I'm too deep for that. You know, I was looking at my spiritual, I don't want to say conference, blessings, endowments. I ain't that type of motherfucker. And so, you know, I say we got to be in different timelines. Something ain't right. Now, my brother, he does truck driving. You know, he wanted to, right before all this shit happened, he wanted to get all, you know, his own little company. That's why I got to do something about this, even if I'm in the spirit plane, because, you know, I've seen I'm in my spirit body. At first, astral body, when I first got placed in the roach realm. That shit's true. My third eye didn't lie. You know, when I used to have it, they stuck it. I would give them all. They stuck in hell realms and shit. You know, when I saw in that soul consciousness, it's saying dad versus drug addiction, Brian versus drug addiction. That's when my parents were out their bodies. They told me they had died in their sleep on August 23rd, 2023. Or 20th. Never got back in, and this is supposed to show it. They died in their sleep. With that being said, that's just some fucked up shit. You know, from what I understand, they had curses, entity attachments placed on them where their consciousness was changed. They would nearly die if they didn't give in to alcohol or drug addictions. My father picking up cans, I heard, you know, an insinuation of that earlier. You know, you can't hear shit out these walls. Something ain't right. You know, your soul consciousness is a record of who you are, and I've had that, you know, stolen from me. Baron Samedi's had his, the original as well as the entity attachment, stolen by Maria Tavares. I feel she planned on plotting shit the minute I fucking mentioned that. They start to get quiet and are like plotting the minute you mention something. With that being said, this whole thing just hurts. It hurts a lot to be stuck like this, and I refuse. I don't give up. That's something I don't do is give up. I don't see the point. You know, like most niggas. You know, most people of color, we don't do that. You know, you commit suicide, you end up in hell. There's always a solution when you're in the physical vessel while you're alive. There's always protection, and I don't believe I'm out in the land of the living. Anyways, watching. So agitated with this evil ass motherfucking malicious shit. Just trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. I can't even, from what I understand, that evil shit is going to manipulate, you know, things so that I can get fucked with if I mention He-Kate, that Maria Tavares and all that from last night. I can't even do shit normal like I used to be able to. That was some mad evil fucking shit. You know, I'm sitting in bed and, you know, you have intrusive thoughts and trying to get rebuilt. And it's just, it's unnecessary. It's something that you should take for granted. And I tell my so-called spirit team that all the fucking time. If I had a better spirit team that gave a fuck about me, none of this soul swapping would have fucking happened. None of this shit would be occurring. None of this shit. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this shit today and call it a motherfucking day. That's the most evil, cold, rotten shit, to steal somebody's soul consciousness. That's their record of their life. That's who they are. You know, I'm also trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. Basically, this whole He-Kate thing arose because from what I saw, alright, within me, my mother is my connection to Isis. And so, with this whole He-Kate thing, that my mother's powers got stolen, and my grandmother Dorothy or something got turned into a sacrifice. My mom. Got turned into a sacrifice. And then at some point, me, in order to give my powers to be this incarnated guy, He-Kate or something, it goes back to, from what I understand, that August 21st, August 22nd, 2022 timeline, where I even heard in the spirit plane that Zendaya, I remember the lady from, I remember somebody else sending something similar. From that show, Lucifer, when I was bound down to Lucifer and all that shit, and I wear certain shit, I'm so fucking agitated. I'm really agitated right fucking now. This shit, it's a daily occurrence for something that is bane on you should be able to take for granted. Anyways, I got a call. I from what I understand, in the spirit plane, I got an email. Fucked up right now. It's not even funny. I got an email from Zendaya back when I lived in Miracle Mile. That's when I started the topless rights movement and all of that. That's how I was, you know, kind of like not really popular. My neighbors seemed to love me and care about me at the time, but I'm learning during this curse, you know, everybody knew about the curse that was going to befall me, including a lot of wetbacks. I had a lot of wetbacks wishing me ill. You know, I'm just going to say bluntly, that's why I stay as far away from them motherfuckers as possible. Their bloodline with them evil-ass spirits they come from, especially Quetzalcoatl, who shapeshifted into a white man. That's why the white man is their god. When they saw Cortez, they thought that was their god return. Them motherfuckers have a cursed bloodline. As a matter of fact, because when they were first created by their reptilian and evil spirit creators, I think they came from Betelgeuse or S Minor or something. They were made to have and be comprised of nothing more than the primordial darkness. And I've seen that manifested in the spirit plane. And in the spirit plane, they're covered by not just like Santa Muerte, you know, but on a two circles level. You know, the guy on YouTube used to talk about the connection between the reptilians and what really rules us, the Watchers and all of that. I believe that the Watchers are Satan and Xenu, the motherfuckers that control the hell realms of the primordial darkness, the realms of chaos. With that being said, I stay as far away from the motherfuckers as possible because they energy vampires. And they like to get close to especially black people, and especially the ones who don't know their worth. They like to really get into your energy field because, I'm just going to say it right now, we come direct from the demiurge, Yod-El-Baal, who's the god of everybody else. Hair of bronze, skin of wool. I mean, hair of wool, skin of bronze. Because them motherfuckers are beneath something. They under something. They're not gods or they're derivative from the direct God like ourselves. And that's just one of the many gods you got out there, the demiurge. That's the material realm god that rules our realm. With that being said, that's why I stay away from them motherfuckers, because they like to get close to us because they know our spiritual worth. They know we rule everybody else. That's why we're envied. And I'm a MAGA hat supporter. Feel like I'm in the military when I put that shit on, saying that. You know, it's like with these evil motherfuckers here. starting Pacific Palisades and all of that. And they were one of the first, but now I got to deal with that Maria Tavares. I wonder what happened yesterday. But anyways, with that being said, that's why I stay as far away from them motherfuckers. That's why 6,000 hertz frequency, which is a frequency that only repels low vibratory entities, you know, they fucked with it and all. I'm trying to change it back. I heard he has control the sun. It's a long fucking story. Anyways, with that being said, 6,000 hertz frequency works to repel them. Along with another frequency that can repel them, along with that Santa Muerte bullshit that's been fucking with my... It's a long fucking story with that as well. 960 hertz. Along with Black Kyanites. Black Kyanites, another one that gets rid of energy vampires. So with that being said, that's why I don't fuck with them people. That's why I don't deal with them people. I stay as far away from them fucking energy vampires as possible. And I noticed that with them. Their eyes will start to turn bright and beam the minute they see, you know, a black person who has strong spiritual powers, but because their master, their creator, through Quetzalcoatl, that's why when they saw Cortez, they thought it was their white god returned. They were giving them gold and everything else. So all that colonialistic people of color, get the fuck out of here. Not with them. It's a spiritual issue with them. It's not like with the Indians, who's gods. I love Lord Hinanam. I love Goddess Kali. I heard she was a poor innocent soul that got trapped in the hell realm like Elegua. I love Lakshmi. There was another one who was an elephant who came to help me out at one point back in that old apartment. But getting back to Zendaya, from what I understand, the trajectory of her life was to go down the path of being a prostitute, strung out on Figaro and ooh. Anyways, because I was famous on the PCH back in that timeline and, you know, for doing the topless thing, and even before that in my old neighborhood, you know, I heard that shit got put on me by wetbacks who were known to put that shit on people. I'm trying to figure out exactly what. I heard Jew, black and the Jew, I don't know. But everybody started taking my blessings and all of that and making a free-for-all. Zendaya jumped in, and I heard that in that timeline, her mother didn't care for having nigga kids. And so, you know, wanted to propel them to fame, you know, make some use for them as a consolation prize. Anyways, from what I understand, she wrote me down as an incarnated god, and that's when my mom's Isis powers got drawn into that Hecate. And from what I saw on the spirit plane, I actually saw my name under Hathor in the spirit plane as Hathor. Hecate comes from Hathor, and Isis I've seen is a lot more fucking powerful. That's their origin. All things, I'm telling you from what I learned during this curse. I'm a MAGA hat wearer. I'm a fucking Trump supporter. All that comes from Kemet. That comes from us, our people. The predecessors, the forerunners of this universe is us. There's nothing more powerful than us black people. That's why even, you know, look, strongest past life I had, aside from the Vietnamese, was the Swedes. I don't worship white people. I know how they think because of that Swedish past life. I don't play with them. So with that being said, yeah, I mean, you can see Zendaya's mama wearing the Baphomet ring. I got one too. You just saw that. But that shows the connection to all of that shit. crystal shop or kids. I'm serious joking about that motherfucker. Kismac jewelry, Kiz Narkunta Kinte, they were derisively saying something. They be having me cracking the fuck up. What's the name of that person from Roots? It's a woman. And it's gonna Nakunta Kinte. But he was given a slave named Toby. I forgot. But it was fucking hilarious. That motherfucker. Stupid motherfucker. Anyway, he's in the obstacle position. We got the Cane of Swords. You can't help it. In the obstacle position, we got the Cane of Swords. And that represents, to me, what I'm picking up on is somebody malevolent coming in. I'm feeling it's a strong feminine energy, but very masculine oriented. In the current position, we got the King of Cups, and I feel like you're getting a lot of abetment and assistance from people who really care about you and want you to do well. Three of Wands, I feel like shit's going to go awry, but not totally, and you're going to be saved. Subconscious, that's your future position. Subconscious, the Sun, you're in a good place because you know things are going to go your way. Kind of like that song, that sitcom that came out in the 60s. I'm just saying how they make fun of a fucking jewelry shop name. It's the funniest shit. They call it, I forgot the name of that lady from Roots, the black lady, sister. And her name is oftentimes kind of like, I don't want to say derided, but made fun of. It'll come back to me. So anyways, in the advice position, we got the Page of Wands. And I feel that you're coming across something is telling you to be wise in your decisions so you can come across a period. I want to say euphoria. After what I sing, I ain't trying to fucking make light of that shit. For great things to come your way. Seven of Wands. Seven of Wands, and that's the energy that surrounds you. And I feel that you're surrounded by a lot of litigious energy. A lot of motherfuckers trying to hold you back, but you also simultaneously got people trying to hold you back for you. The Fool, that's your fears and your hopes card. And I feel that you fear shit going awry, but you know you're going to be safe. You fear the worst to come. Outcome, look, I was right. Five of Swords. You're going to be the winner, but make sure you make the right steps to win. Fuck is cracking me up. I just had my consciousness fucked just now. I got to figure out what to do. Anyways, and I just saw Six of Wands. Anyways, if you want a more personalized tarot reading, please contact me at ravenbytarot22@yahoo.com. That's some evil shit because your soul consciousness is who you are. That's the record of your life. That's how I know that timeline is real. I was shown Carrie versus drug addiction because they had a curse that would literally kill them if they didn't give in to the addiction. I had that unknowingly, unbeknownst to me. After that curse got placed on me in Miracle Mile back in 2016. That's when I started staying in homeless shelters, and I first saw the trajectory of my life of me being in homeless shelters, waiting government aid and all of that at the welfare office. I saw that, learning, say the Pentacles. I saw that coming, you know, I was shown, you know, them girls here, Pre-air homes or something. That's the nigga at the end. They saw tropical islands, helipads, all at my expense as a sacrifice. All them people in that timeline are benefiting off of me. I think in a couple of timelines as a sacrifice. And here I am, literally, I don't want to say it because it's physical. It's stuck in my head. And having to fucking be happy with something people take for granted, which is the inner maintenance and engineering of your body. I don't have that. You know, at the beginning, it was nothing more than entity attachments. And from what I understand, and road spirits helping me as much as they can. They try to fuck with one right now. And with that being said, if I didn't have that, you know, from what I understand, if only entity attachments, not that spirits are helping you, that means they don't give a fuck about you. And that's the most evil fucking thing you can conceive. It is. You know, the road spirits were showing me one day. They were showing me the trajectory of my life and, you know, versus them people's lives. And I started crying. That shit's real. You know, when I was about to get pulled into an astral vision and not be able to wake up, I had heard my parents talk and my brother's consciousness acted. That means they ain't in their bodies. From what I understand, they died on August the 23rd, 2022, 23. Back when I got on the PCH 10 of Wands and Reverse. That ain't good. I got 6 of Swords right here that stood out, but that's not good. And here I am, and, you know, because I know the reality of things. I articulated it on my website when I talked about Santa Muerte, and it's fucked up how things get worse when I try to get back to normal and try to get back on my site, but I can't. With the weight of this knowledge, I can never go back.